Let me let's talk a little bit about everlasting Nora. So obviously, my first question to you is Maria Miranda Cruz. Have you ever seen a flying saucer, and do you believe in them?
I have never seen a flying saucer, but I would love to see one. I don't know if I could see. I don't know if saying I believe in them is quite the statement. I want to say I want to believe in them, and I would welcome the possibility of seeing one. Yeah, I will be looking. I look at the skies, and I have to say that I growing up, not growing up, but when I was reading a lot of books in my 20s, and a lot of them were science fiction and fantasy novels. So yeah, I would love to see a flying saucer.
It'll be great. And as soon as we can find an author from another planet, by God, we'll get him on this show. I promise. I want to talk to him. Well, let me ask you, what's been your favorite reader reaction so far to Everlasting Nora?
Um, I would say my most favorite so far. I received a letter from a teacher in Canada who was writing to me on behalf of her class. Apparently, they read Everlasting Nora together. They studied it, and she said that her students really really enjoyed it. They said that they think it could be a movie, and they
Sure.
wanted to know if there was going to be a sequel.
Well, is there going to be a sequel?
Well, I have a sequel in mind, but we'll see. I initially wanted it to be a standalone book, but I did have an idea for what would happen to Nora afterwards. I have been receiving some in-person queries from children who've read the book and from some adults who say, "Hey, so what happened to Nora after that?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I have an idea of what did happen to Nora, so we'll see." That's a project in the future.
And then I know that you mentioned that you used, in addition to your critique group, you used sensitivity readers for the book. And so I'm always curious, what was your process for one finding sensitivity readers, and then how were you able to use their input to better shape the book?
Um, my Diana was actually the one who initiated the process of finding a sensitivity reader. She asked me for suggestions. Um, I didn't have anybody in mind particularly. Actually I did. I had a librarian who is Filipino American, who I suggested could read the book, and then Diana herself had somebody in mind in New York City who was willing to give feedback. So we had feedback from both those sides. So in terms of after that, I think Diana wanted to have a sensitivity reader from the Philippines. She wanted to make sure that Filipinos in the Philippines, that this story would read true to them, and I had to admit that it had been over almost 30 years since I last lived in the Philippines, so I had to admit even to myself that maybe my own memories might be a little faulty. So I agreed, and I did know somebody in the Philippines who she was actually my classmate in high school, and she works in the movie and music industry in the Philippines. So I knew that she had a very good understanding of what a DNR is.
Sure.
Yeah. So is that the right term for that document? Or am I thinking of no, it's not DNR.
That's
It's
do not resuscitate. It's do not talk about what you read, right? I don't know what the
I'm
official
giving you a
term is.
medical term. Non-disclosure agreement was what I was
There we
looking for.
go. That's the one.
It's anyway. Sorry about that. That was a slip
No,
there.
by all means, if the manuscript goes into cardiac arrest, by God, resuscitate it. Just don't tell anybody about it afterwards.
So, that's hilarious. So yeah, so she
NDR,
had a
non-disclosure agreement. Oh my God.
non-disclosure agreement. So she had an understanding of what intellectual property is, since she works in the music industry. So I asked her to read it for me, and she gave me some really great feedback and lots of good reassurances that, you know, it read true to her, culture-wise, the people, how I drew the characters. She gave it the stamp of approval, so that was really great. She had some good tips though that I had to change a few things, like cell phone use. I left the Philippines in the 80s, so back then there were no cell phones. So I had to kind of drop that in there. I go, oh yeah, there would be cell phones. Even among some of the poor folks there, they still have cell phones. So yeah, so I had to kind
Unfortunately, I
of
don't think
insert that.
there's hardly any place you can go on Earth anymore where there wouldn't be somebody with a phone.
Exactly, with a cell phone. So yeah, so that was an eye opener. Yeah. So yeah, I know that some authors have, you know, depending on where they live or who they know, it can be difficult to find sensitivity readers. But I think there's a lot of good resources online to look for. You know, you can get in touch with people there, and if you have a wide group of friends, sometimes you can. You know, just put a shout out, you know, whether on what social media, you know, if you have a writing group there, if they know anybody who would read for you. But the key thing, I think, the important thing to think about when you're getting a sensitivity reader is that you have to listen to what they have to say, because I've heard of some instances where there's some pushback. You know, an author will have somebody read for them, you know, do a sensitivity read, but the author, you know, doesn't respond very well to the feedback. And so I think it's so key to, if you're going to do this, you're going to seek out somebody to read for you, to, you know, especially if you have people of color in your book, if you have a different culture, you're writing a, you know, or referencing a different culture in a book, or a different, you know, somebody who is from a different culture in your book, you know, you have to really listen to the feedback from the sensitivity reader. I think that's the most important thing when you're looking to get one. You have to be prepared for the feedback and be prepared to listen.
One of my favorite things on Twitter is when somebody will tweet out a page from a book of an author who clearly did not use the sensitivity reader, and it's just awful, and everybody gangs on and makes fun of it. And so it's one of my goals in life to never have a page of one of my books being tweeted about in that manner.
Yeah.
If you think it's brilliant, by God, tweet that out, but don't don't come at me and say Rob Kent didn't nail the